Hello, my name is Rick Williams. I'm the Business Inclusion Manager for the City of Pittsburgh, Office of Equity, Office of Mayor William Peduto. The show is called Inclusion Counts. And the goal of the show is basically three things. One, to educate and inform, build capacity, and also provide contract opportunities for the minority, women, and veteran business community and small communities in our region. It's roughly going to be a monthly conversation with subject matter experts in these areas on a regular basis. And today, our first guest is Jen Olzinger. She's the Assistant Director of Procurement of the City of Pittsburgh.
Morning, Rick.
Good morning, Jen. How are you today?
Not too bad. Still getting used to this work from home situation and, adjusting to all of that. So how is that all working out for you on your end?
Yeah,
you have some little ones, so.
Yeah, my little ones are at home. They're getting Zoom education online with the charter school. And, we're trying to make it work the best way we can. I just had to increase my capacity in regards to our Comcast wireless service because we roughly have 5 devices every day. How about there where you're at? I know, what are your challenges there at home?
Yeah, I've got an online college student from home taking her classes in her bedroom. Her brother has done cyber school for quite a long time already. He's been in cyber, so it's nothing new to him. But it's kind of I feel like she's missing out on the college experience, everything that goes along with it other than the learning. So it's definitely different times. So, but we're all resilient people, and I think we've all adapted as well as we can, right?
Right. I mean, we're in a resilient city, and so we're just showing how strong we are in these times of COVID. So I know we don't have a lot of time, just want to kind of jump into a few things. Can you kind of explain your role with the City of Pittsburgh as the Assistant Procurement Director?
Sure. So yes, I am, again, Jennifer Olzinger. I am Assistant Director for the Office of Management and Budget. And we're right down the hall from Rick when we were actually in the office. I'm also the procurement manager for the city. I manage a team of 8. And we are responsible for putting out all bids and solicitations for the city and getting all of the contracts in place for all of the products, services, construction and everything that it takes to run the city. So departments look at us for guidance, for direction, making sure that things are within city code, that we're purchasing everything the way we're supposed to be, and making sure that the contracts benefit the city in the best way possible. So that's basically, that's our main job, is to make sure that the city has the contracts that they need in place to buy everything that they need when they need it, and not have any lapse in service of any of our contracts.
Yeah, with that said, dealing with contracts and so forth, how are you handling procurements during COVID? I mean, we're both working from home and trying to do the best we can to continue city services. What type of measures are you taking in place that you have put in place during this time?
We were actually very fortunate than a lot of my other government agencies that I'm in touch with. We were already fully online with all of our bids. Some of our counterparts in other areas of the state are still, they were still on paper. So it's been a real struggle for them. So we were very fortunate that we had everything already online. We had implemented electronic signatures at the beginning of the year, as well as part of a grant that we have to help out small businesses. And one of the biggest things that they had, through the research, is that our contracting process was very long and time consuming, which, was not good for small businesses. The big corporations, they've got enough money to, support them, but the smaller businesses, we need to get those contracts done quickly so that they can get the work done and they can get paid. That is a big thing is how quickly we can pay the small businesses, because cash flow to a small business is critical. So we were also very fortunate that at the beginning of the year, we started e-signatures, and that cut the majority of our contracting process down from about 3 months down to about 3 weeks. So that has been huge for us, especially during COVID, to have that opportunity now, so they do not have to. It's also reduced the expense for the small businesses as well, because they previously had to print 3 to 4 hard copies, physically sign them. They were having to get things notarized. We took that out of the process as well. So we've taken that expense out of the printing and everything, and the time they have to mail them, we have to wait. So now they email everything in. We send it through a DocuSign process, and it's really fast and efficient, and it has really, really benefited the small businesses, and really helped efficiencies across the city for all contracts. So,
have you seen a lot of new businesses because you removed all the barriers in regards to bidding and so forth, and the contract process internally moving forward and moving faster?
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot more variety of companies bidding in the past year or so. I think making it accessible to them, really helps. We've also begun an education program that actually started just this week. We had the first of 3 sessions in conjunction with Pitt's Small Business Development Center. So I had mentioned that we had received a grant from Living Cities. It's called a Living Cities grant, but it's run by Citibank. So the city received $50,000 to make these improvements and make everything that we have more accessible to small businesses, educate the small businesses on what it is to do business with the city, and also what it is the core things that a small business needs to know and understand, that they might not know. If you're a cleaning company that's starting up, right? These education sessions are saying not only how do they bid on things for the city, but what it takes to make their business grow. So that's this educational series that we have with Pitt. We're going to be posting them online on our website after they are all complete. But if you want to take the live sessions, small businesses can email sbdc@innovation.pitt.edu and get registered for those. The second set starts the first week of October. The first one was focused on just all of the resources that Pitt has in their small business, and letting people know what is out there for free for them. They have a great thing. They actually got rated, Pitt Small Business Office got rated first in the nation for the quality of the services that they provide. So we have a really nice resource right here in our neighborhood for small businesses, and they can support them with marketing, financing, getting them, lines of credit or loans, the right kinds of loans. So there's that first session was focused on that. And the second 2 sessions are going to be more focused on the city, how to present themselves, how to respond to an RFP in the best way, and also how to close the deal at the end, how to present themselves, help them, learn how to interview well and things like that. So I'm really excited about the series that we kicked off, and it's really going to be great. We're fortunate that we were able to fund that with the Living Cities grant.
So I guess with that, I guess we should see a uptick in the registrations with our procurement site.
Yes.
And in regards to the various industries, do you know what type of industries are signing up for Pitt to take advantage of these educational and capacity building opportunities?
Yeah. So through in the first sessions, I put in the chat, I asked, say, hey, what is your business name? Because, it's people's names and you don't know what they're doing. What
Right.
is the name of your business? And, what actually is it that you do? And we've had healthcare people, we've had IT folks, we've had different types of consultants, we've had architecture firms, we've had caterers, we've had cleaning companies. So it's really a wide variety of people that are there was a marketing agency in the one yesterday. So it was really nice to see a nice variety of businesses join in there into those sessions. We had over 100 companies, 100 small businesses join the sessions this week.
That's great. That's great. So I guess it's early, but I'll ask you this question anyway. Is there any examples of a small business, a new small business, having an opportunity to do any city contracting work since COVID and these classes?
Yeah. So one example that I can think of off of the top of my head was COVID related, the mayor's office, they really wanted the city county building, which houses the majority of our employees. Even though while we're a lot of us aren't there, he wanted a good deep cleaning, top to bottom. We always, there's a daily cleaning, they clean the bathrooms and things, but he wanted a good deep clean. He wanted the bathrooms sanitized from top to bottom, all of the common spaces sanitized from top to bottom, counters, things like that. So we put a bid out for a deep cleaning of the city county building. And it was awarded to an up and coming new small business. I don't think she's been in business too long, maybe a year. And it was really nice for her to see a local small business win that bid. And from what I understand, they came in, did the work, did it efficiently, did a nice job. They were, DPW was pleased with the outcome. So now she's on our list and she's already won one thing. And, hopefully as other cleaning things come up, this company will bid again. So it was nice to see, an up and coming small business get that award.
Yeah, and we have a local business that we could look at and saying they had an opportunity and they took advantage of it. I know we're finishing up. We have a few more minutes. Jen, what would be a suggestion or a tip or advice to give to a small business to have an opportunity for the city of Pittsburgh for contracting?
Yeah.
What would you give advice to? What would you say?
The main thing that they need to do, the most important thing, is to sign up for our site called Beacon, and that is our bidding and solicitation site. So if they go to purchasing.pittsburghpa.gov, there's a link to register. They can also then look at the bid opportunities, but registering will get them automatically emailed as soon as an opportunity comes up in the category of work that they select. So again, if you're a cleaning company, you would go in and sign up for, I want to see when bids come for cleaning services. And then as soon as something comes up in that category, they get an email that tells them there's something out there. They can also look at our current bid opportunities. They can also look at our current contracts out there so they can see when our current contracts expire, so that they know about the time of year that they're going to see something coming up for that. And we also have a new thing that we also did from our grant money, is we created a buying plan. And there's a link for that on that site as well. The buying plan is a comprehensive 1-year forecast, not only for the city, but all of the 5 sister agencies and authorities of the city. So you're going to see opportunities by quarter, when they're going to, what quarter of the year they're going to be coming out for a year ahead, so that small businesses can go and look and plan ahead to, be able to allocate resources. A lot of small businesses are a 1 or 2 man show. So them getting notice of an RFP, seeing it on in the newspaper or whatever, and only having 4 weeks to scramble to get everything together that they need, they can proactively get those things in place and have their, statement of capabilities, right? Their resumes, their different things like that you need to put in an RFP or a bid, that gives them time to plan ahead for that. So that gives a look for the city of Pittsburgh, the URA Urban Redevelopment Authority, the Sports and Exhibition Authority, the Pittsburgh Parking Authority, the Housing Authority of the city of Pittsburgh, the Equipment Leasing Authority, and the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. So you're getting a one-stop shop at an outlook. You'll get all of the contact information for all of those agencies. And they all have different sites and different, contacts for how they do their bids. So that's a very, very nice thing that everybody should look at and check out that buying plan, and make those connections with our sister authorities as well. I think a common misunderstanding is if they sign up for the city's website that they are also getting those other agencies, and it is not a one-stop shop. Each authority does their own procurement and have their own contacts. So, there's 6 sites that you really need to look at, not just one.
So there isn't one site that they could go on and see the links for the others to look at this plan? Or is there a website to look at the plan and then they have to respond accordingly?
Yeah, so if they go on to our website and look at the buying plan, that gives them all of the information for all of the agencies and what they're going to be doing in what quarter as well.
Okay, Jen, thank you for providing these opportunities for our vendors in the city of Pittsburgh. I know that you're busy dealing with these multiple procurements across the city and also creating these inclusive opportunities for us. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
This is great, and we'll be moving forward to our next segment. And our next segment will be the SBA. Dave Pinkosky from the Small Business Administration. So again, thank you for your time, Jen, and we'll see you hopefully next month when we do Inclusion Counts. Take care. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Good to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you too. It's been a while since we've been together at the governmental committee meetings that we've been going to. Thank you for being on our show today. You're our second guest for Inclusion Counts.
Okay, cool.
So I just want to kind of read your bio a little bit, and then we'll kind of dig right into some of the questions that everybody wants to hear about the SBA.
Sure.
So Dave Pinkosky currently works at the U.S. Business Administration, Western Pennsylvania District as a business opportunity specialist. Dave is a graduate from Penn State University with a bachelor's degree in business administration with an emphasis on management and marketing. He also holds multiple government contracting certifications, including Certified Procurement Professional from the Association of Procurement and Technical Assistance Centers and Veteran-Owned Small Business Verification Assistance Counselor from the VA Center for Verification and Evaluation. Dave is also a level 1 graduate from the Federal Acquisition. So Dave, I know that we had talked about that last piece, that being a level 1 graduate of this is not an easy task. And it sounded like when we talked on our prep call that kind of encompassed all the work that you've been doing for the last 16 years, being in government contracting and technical assistance. So I wanted to kind of start a little bit different and go from your current to your, from your various experiences moving forward. So explain that, and then we'll kind of dive into the rest of the conversation that we're going to have today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, FACSI certification, it's federal acquisition certification, and it is a pretty intense government contracting course that a number of procurement professionals in the federal sector have to go through. A lot of contracting officers, procurement center representatives, and other kind of high-level people that deal with procurements on a daily basis have to go through that training. And at the SBA, all the business opportunity specialist personnel have to go through at least level 1 certification. And what that means is we have various classes to become experts on FAR regulations or small business socioeconomic designations like Hub Zone, Women-Owned Program, the 8A Small Disadvantage Program, and Veteran Certification. And the idea behind that is just to make us better business counselors to help our small business clients navigate the government procurement arena on the federal level, because contracting can be pretty complicated and convoluted. So obviously having an excellent working knowledge of how these procurement processes work at the federal agencies is very, very critical for us as business opportunity specialists when we're, helping our clients get some of those federal contracts.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with that because your current position, you've only been in there for roughly about, 6 months, right before COVID?
Actually, no, a little longer. I started in December of 18 was when I came to the SBA.
Okay.
So December of 18, I had got about 2 weeks under my belt before the furlough, unfortunately, that hit the beginning of 2019. But yeah, so as you mentioned, I've been in government contracting in some capacity or another since 2003. I've used to award contracts, negotiate them, all that fun stuff. And I've been teaching people how to respond to those types of solicitations that I used to write way back when for probably about 13 years now or so, since I was at the Procurement Technical Assistance Center before I joined the SBA. So I've been doing business counseling, specifically focusing on federal contracting for quite some time.
So how have things, I guess, changed because of COVID? I know that we started from your experience and kind of moved backwards, and now we're coming back again, dealing with this pandemic, and everyone, wants to know again how you're handling that as a professional, but also as a person as well. I mean, because you came into this relatively new role, you had to get this type of training. And then, we're dealing with a global pandemic with various changes that's centered around the SBA. So,
Yes.
so I don't know how you want to tackle that. I know I put 3 questions into one there.
Oh,
but
no
go
problem.
ahead and take it on.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been interesting to say the least. I have to admit I've enjoyed it as much as I can anyway. Not the pandemic part naturally, but the counseling and working with the clients and trying to help people navigate, kind of this craziness that's been going on for all of us. One of the things we take a lot of pride in at our district office is just trying to be all-around business counselors. We do a lot of counseling in-house at my agency, but for anything that we can't do, we have a lot of excellent resource partners that we can get our small business clients in touch with. So pretty much any sort of business issue a small business may be facing or experiencing, we do our best to help them navigate that. And obviously we're moving into more of a recovery type of phase, hopefully. So we can, we've helped some of our clients sort of readjust some of their expectations and things like that for some of the programs or some of the procurements they had hoped to try and get. One of the interesting things from the federal level was beyond just kind of the SBA loan programs and things we got involved in, obviously with like PPP and EIDL, was federal procurement for the most part was not negatively impacted to the level that a lot of people would think. The types of contracts that we are helping our small business clients get, and when I say navigate the federal marketplace, are contracts that help our federal agencies, employees like myself, our military, our servicemen and women do their jobs and execute their missions on a daily basis. So obviously when the pandemic hit, in a lot of cases, we still had projects and things going on, because in my case, my agency actually brought on more staff and got busier due to the COVID loans and the assistance programs we were trying to do. So obviously that was onboarding new people, whether we went through like HR staffing firms that we still needed that type of service, equipment purchases, computers, things like that. And in the case of national defense, like I said, with our military, that stuff never goes away. Our servicemen and women, we're still out there doing what they need to do every day. They still needed access to the best equipment and services out there so they can execute their missions. So it wasn't, I mean, we had some clients that had some contracts that, got postponed, or maybe a few things got canceled, but it wasn't quite to the degree that you saw with some of the other industries, which was really great for a lot of our small businesses, because being that they were already in the procurement arena and kind of had those certifications and designations and were already in the game, so to speak, they were able to weather the COVID storm and the pandemic a little bit better than some of the other small businesses that hadn't traditionally been in those opportunities. But lately, we've been seeing a lot of uptick now. We're trying to do a lot more outreach and try to get back to business as usual. So we've been having a lot of interest from businesses that haven't traditionally been involved in procurement, looking at our programs and things. So we've been trying to help them, ramp up, get procurement ready, as we like to say, so that they can start participating in the government market.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I know that you cover a 27 county footprint. Do you know how Allegheny County, I guess, fared against the 27 counties that you serve? And, do you know, as far as locally, any minority businesses and so forth that had these opportunities? I know that, go ahead, I'll ask you that.
Absolutely. I don't have specific county data. That's something I could definitely try and look and see if we could get some of that information. As far as the businesses that were able to weather the storm, we had a lot of minority and disadvantaged businesses that were still performing on their contracts. We actually had one of our 8A clients secure a very nice contract award with NASA. So like I said, a lot of those types of things were still happening. And just to kind of clarify the 8A program, that is our small and disadvantaged business enterprise program. So for us, that's for any company that has maybe minority ownership, or an individual that has some sort of handicap status or something like that, a disability, to where they can get special preference on government contracts. So like I said, a lot of those types of things, many of our clients in those programs are still functioning and completing their federal projects without really any hiccups at all.
Now, was any of the PPE and those other types of supplies that were kind of necessary as far as an emergency procurement, were those type of things placed in the 8A program for vendors that were participating? And then did they have opportunities?
Sure. In some cases, some of the agencies did look at that. So some things were procured through those programs. But in this case, a lot of those purchases actually ended up kind of going through the disaster purchase requirements, which is under emergency purchases, because those were things that were needed a little more quickly, that didn't necessarily always allow for those long-term, or kind of that longer turnaround time that takes some of those contracts to work through those other processes. So we had clients in our certification programs that were able to access those opportunities just like any other small business. So they didn't actually have to be in the 8A or the hub zone or any of those programs to get those opportunities. But we had quite a few that were still in there within our 27 county region. I don't have, unfortunately, like I said, I didn't pull all the exact data, so I don't have numbers for you. But yeah, we had a number of clients we were helping that, like I said, they were actually kind of readjusting. We actually had a woman-owned small business who makes a phenomenal product called the Safety Sleeper, which is a kind of a device that's used to assist clients that have people in their families that have autism. It's almost like a hut type thing, I guess, that goes on your bed and helps those people that have those issues feel secure and things when they're sleeping. And she started making PPE masks, the facial masks. And one of the great things she did was, not only did she make the regular cloth masks, but having the understanding of the needs of people with disabilities, she actually has a clear shield over the mouth of her face masks, so that people that are hard of hearing, or if they're deaf or whatever, anything like that, they can actually still see and read lips and all that sort of thing and communicate. So we had a number of clients that kind of repositioned themselves, just kind of going through that pathway to still find some opportunities on the federal sector.
Man, that's good to know, Dave. And like me and you have talked, you're going to probably be a recurring guest on this show with some.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Rick. Yeah.
So we'll follow up with that. You made a tremendous segue, because I know that when we were doing our prep session, we wanted to talk about some of the changes in the woman-owned small business and the economic disadvantaged small business program. So
Yes.
I'll kind of let you talk about the women-owned small business program and then the differences of the economically disadvantaged women-owned small business.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we were pretty excited about the changes that have occurred this year in the woman-owned program and also the Hub Zone program. But especially the woman-owned program, because that's taking place kind of literally as we speak. The transition for that is actually happening on October 15th. So traditionally for the federal woman-owned small business program, the federal government has had a 5% contracting goal for women-owned small businesses to compete on federal contracts. And we have goals actually for all of our socioeconomic programs. So I should probably kind of start with that. The overall small business federal goal for all small businesses is 23%. So what that means is 23% of all federal contracting dollars are required to go to small businesses. Now, when I say that number, sometimes in a lot of my presentations, when I'm talking to people, they think, oh, 23%, that's not really good. Then when you talk about the other certification programs, in the case of the woman-owned and the 8A program, they're 5% goals. The veteran program is 3%, and the Hub Zone program is 3%. So when you hear percentage numbers that sound like single digits or low 20s, it doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, right? But whenever you put that into perspective of the federal budget, which of course is a lot of money, our 23% goal last year, we actually hit 26%, and that was $132.9 billion that was set aside specifically for small businesses. And conversely, when you go down to those other programs, 5% actually for the woman-owned program was right around 26 billion that was spent in that. We actually exceeded that goal too. We were at 5.1%. The veteran-owned program was 3% at $22 billion. We actually hit 4% in that goal. And also the Hub Zone program was 3%. Now Hub Zone, we were a little short on 2.28%, but that was still $11.4 billion. But in the case of the socioeconomic program, I mentioned the 8A program, which again is for our minority and disadvantaged businesses. We actually doubled that goal. So we had a 5% federal goal for all agencies last year. We hit 10.29%, and that was $51.6 billion. So when I'm talking about these goals and these certifications, we're talking about a lot of federal contracting dollars that obviously is taxpayer money. So we're very, very cautious about that and how we track those spends. And that's one of the things we do at the SBA. In addition to helping the clients and the small businesses get into government contracting, we are the agency that's the watchdog and responsible for assisting the other federal agencies to actually meet their contracting goals. So all that being said, back to the woman-owned program. Currently, the program, how we've had it in the past, and it's been around since probably about 2010 or 11, is it's been a self-certification program, or you could go through a third-party certifier that was approved by the SBA, but you had to pay a fee. And one of the things that was interesting about the program, it was relatively easy to get into or to say you're a woman-owned small business, because all you would have to do is go to the SBA's online repository, upload your documentation for your business, just standard documents, things like your articles of incorporation, any licenses, operating agreement, those standard types of things that you have as a business owner, and upload those into the database. And then you'd go back to the System for Awards Management, or SAM, which is the federal government's vendor database, and you just check a little box and you were qualified as a woman-owned small business. And then what would happen is, if you applied for a contract using your small business designation as a woman-owned small business, the contracting officer at that point would go back into the SBA's online system where you uploaded your documents and have to actually check your documents to verify that you were a woman-owned small business. Now, the problem with that was, even though we did hit that goal and we were, like I said, slightly over, the problem we've had over the years with that program is that the contracting officers are buying experts. Contracting officers are experts at federal purchasing. They understand FAR regulations, which is federal acquisition regulations. They understand how to negotiate, do market research. They are not small business specialists. So in that case, you had people that, unfortunately, I talked to a lot of contracting officers, they've never even really looked at an operating agreement. They don't understand small business licenses and certifications. Yet that was the individual on the federal side responsible for verifying that information before making an award.
Hey,
So
Dave, I wanted to kind of break it down a little bit. If
Sure.
I'm a woman-owned business, what type of businesses are under this program? Just kind of high level. Real quick, because if we have some small businesses that are interested in government procurement, we don't want to scare them off. We want to see if they have a chance and what type of things that they need to do to be considered.
Absolutely. Well, just to be considered, it's again just a matter of doing a couple of registrations and certifications and gathering your business documents, uploading them into that online depository I mentioned. But beyond that, the NAICS codes that are attached to that, pretty much every industry is eligible. But kind of where we get into a difference, what's unique about the women-owned program is there's sort of two levels to it. We have the overall women-owned small business program, in which there's about almost 300 NAICS codes that are approved for use in that program. Meaning if your industry is in one of those North American Industry Classification System codes, or NAICS, that's what designates what you do on a day-to-day, business. If your NAICS codes fall in that program, then you're eligible as a woman-owned small business. Now, beyond that, though, if you meet a couple additional criteria beyond the general woman-owned certification, which again is pretty much 51% ownership and control of the business, and managing the day-to-day operations is really all you need for just the basic woman-owned certification. But depending on your personal assets, your net worth, and your income levels, you may actually qualify as an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. And what that means is it could give you actually a little bit more of a leg up through some sole sourcing opportunities to where you could get contracts directly awarded to you without competition. And the EDW OSB program is only for specific NAICS codes. I mentioned about that as 300 or so for the woman-owned small business. There's only 80 or so that are designated as economically disadvantaged. But if you have a personal net worth of less than $750,000, if your 3-year average income is $350,000 or less, and the fair market value of all your assets is $6 million or less, then you could be eligible for the economically disadvantaged program. Now, as far as the NAICS codes and industries, any number of industries are available for the program in some capacity. Again, so there's about 80 in economically disadvantaged. You'd see things like very specialty manufacturing to where women haven't really been represented, like maybe high-tech plastics manufacturing, resin manufacturing, concrete installation, and things like that. Whereas the overall small business program would be just general construction, advertising services, graphic design, normal business activities. So that's kind of how that breaks out as far as the economically disadvantaged and the woman-owned. So there's sort of two levels. So just to clarify, all economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses are automatically women-owned small businesses, but not every woman-owned small business will qualify for that economic disadvantage. Because the other thing that can happen is you can be a woman-owned small business in one of those economically disadvantaged NAICS codes, but you may just be very successful and you're going to be too far above those thresholds as far as the income and assets and everything to qualify.
Yeah, I know, Dave, we're running out of time, and that's why I said that, we have to bring you back on. You're a repository yourself of information, and we really appreciate your time. Any last minute things that you want to say, last remarks before we get off?
If I could, I just, I kind of end all my outreach sessions with this. I just want the small business owners, women, Hub Zone, if you're just a general small business, minority status, whatever, if you're a small business, just understand that there's a lot of amazing resources out there for you to use. We exist as a federal agency. We fall under the executive branch. Our agency's been around since 1953. Our mission is to help small businesses grow, expand, recover, whatever that means for you within your small business life cycle. So whatever we can do to support you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Like I mentioned when we started, in addition to what we do at the SBA, we have a lot of amazing partners out there at our small business development centers, women's business centers, our procurement technical assistance center partners, a SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. These are all agencies that are government funded, even if they're not direct government employees, that offer completely free business counseling services, or in some cases, they may charge a very, very small fee of like 10 or 20 bucks, which is well worth the investment for some of the trainings and things you get access to. So just understand that you're not alone out there. There are a lot of people that are experts in their fields that, devote their lives to this, assisting small businesses and help you grow and expand and all that fun stuff. So anything we could do to help, please don't hesitate to let us know. All
right. Thank you, Dave, for all your expertise and knowledge about this. And we'll see you again next month. All right. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Take care now. Bye-bye. Welcome back. We are with Tammi Davis. She is the Director of Contract Compliance and Policy Engagement for the Gary, Indiana Sanitation District. Thank you, Tammi, for being with us today.
Okay.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Just want to know, I mean, how are you dealing with the whole pandemic situation with you personally and professionally in this space? I know, I've talked to some previous guests, and they're trying to manage kids and manage work and so forth. What type of things are you doing to survive during these turbulent times?
I'm trying to really stay focused. I can admit that it has been very difficult, very challenging. When we first started the pandemic and working from home, I can tell you that I hit the ground running. I didn't stop. I mean, on March 23rd, I started working from home every day. And from March 23rd, I would say all the way up until mid-June, late June, I was hitting the ground hard every day. I recognized that with this pandemic and not being in the office, the first thing I thought about were the businesses, that I'm trying to help. And I could imagine how challenging it was for me, that it was even more challenging for many of our businesses. But I have to admit that by the time July came around, I was exhausted. I was really, really exhausted. And everybody at that point was doing Zoom meetings. So they accounted for the fact that you could wake up and be at work with only 10 steps. So calls started at 8 o'clock in the morning versus before. They would at least give you time to get in the office. All of that was gone out the window. So I think that some of our stakeholders and even my internal and external colleagues said, you know what? You can remove getting dressed time. You can remove travel time to and from these meetings. So it was like back-to-back calls, but overall, I'm just really trying to stay focused on the job at hand, and then just stay focused on my own health, that I have to be healthy and wise. So it's a struggle like everybody else, but we're managing through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have an interesting position, and that's why I kind of read it off when we first started here and came back to Inclusion Counts, that you have contract compliance, but you also have policy engagement. And in most government settings, those positions are separate, because you have an internal responsibility and kind of moving policy kind of forward. And then also you have an external responsibility far as compliance is concerned, and engagement and getting people in. And that's kind of what you've been doing for the last, I don't know, since you've been with the Gary, Indiana district. And so I wanted you to kind of unpack that a little bit, of how you came to that position, because that wasn't the initial position you had, correct? This is something that you proposed, and now it's live, so to speak.
Yes. So my actual title is Director of Compliance and Policy Engagement for the Gary Sanitary District. And in coming back to working in municipal government, or at least municipally owned utility here in Gary, I had the very fortunate opportunity to craft the title as well as what the position entailed. And from years of experience in doing this, which is now almost 20 years that I have been working in this space, I have long accepted and realized that just about everything we do is based upon the policies that are set in place. And so with sitting down with the then mayor and our executive director at the district and thinking about this position, I wanted to make sure that policy was a part of it, because the policies, the ordinances, the legislation at every level, local, state, and federal, impacts what we do and how we do it. And in order to get to compliance, we first start with the policies that create the need for these programs in the first place, right? And I can't do my job effectively sitting behind a desk all day. I have to be out there in the community. They have to see me, they have to feel me, businesses, residents, stakeholders. I have to be out there as much as some of our other engagement partners. We all have to be in that room together. And so, I always explain internally and externally that compliance is the end result. Compliance is simply doing what we are supposed to do, no matter what it is, no matter what industry, whether it's regulatory compliance, financial compliance, or in our space of contract and labor compliance, because I manage both. We have to be out there in the community. They have to know us. And so as policies are being created, I want to make sure that I was at the table to add my input on the shaping and framing of that policy to ensure that it is something that is realistic, that it is something that we could achieve and something that, could be supported. So I guess in some regards, we're unique in that aspect because we recognize that policy is the foundation of everything that we do.
Wow. And so in saying policy, what type of policies have you changed from the outward engagement that you've been doing with the community? What type of barriers have you, I guess, lifted to allow more contracting with the minority business community and also the overall business community of Gary, Indiana?
Sure. So I think one of the barriers that we have been able to break through is presenting those of us that are entitled compliance officers as more than just the end user to the degree of just do what we tell you to do. Just make sure the numbers are right. And so it has been a very intentional focus of mine to ensure that my stakeholders, internal and external, are educated about what compliance fully encompasses and to view us as policy partners. That we are the subject matter experts. We're the ones that are sitting in front of contractors. We're the ones that's sitting in front of vendors. We're the ones that get stopped at the grocery store, in the church line where you got to go drop off your tithes and offering. And somebody says, by the way, I've got a grandson that's been trying to get into the construction trades and hasn't been able to do that, for the past couple years. We're the ones that they see at some meeting in the community and say, I've been bidding on these government projects for years and haven't been able to get a one yet. We're the ones that's there, so, it's been very intentional focus to present those of us in the space as the ones who actually know what we're doing. We know the industry, we know the trends. And so I've been very happy with the type of relationship that I've been able to build with many of our elected officials, from our council to our mayor, to our state representatives, and even our congressional and Senate representatives, to position myself and those that are my colleagues, that as they're coming up with these policies, to see us as a source of information. Don't just make these policies and say, hey, implement it. Get our input. And so to that degree, I can say that our former mayor, we were able to at least start the discussion of looking at our ordinances and comparing that to the language that's included in there, right? And does it need to be updated? And the answer to that question was, yes, it does. And then in looking at the compliance reports, to see where are we trending? Where have we kind of been kind of consistent, whether we're meeting it or not meeting it, where are the gaps, where are the deficiencies, what do we need to change? And so the former mayor and I were able to have that discussion, and with our corporation counsel at that time, to take a look at our ordinances to see if they just made sense, if they were still, they need to be up to date. And then from our attending the American Contract Compliance Association, Rick, you and I were doing that for years. I was able to get some language, some good examples, best practices from our colleagues, and recommend that type of language. And so now that we have a new administration this year, that started January of this year, our mayor, he signed an executive order creating an MBE, WBE, and V as in veteran business enterprise aspirational goal on all of our procurements. And so right now, what I've been tasked with is looking at our current procurement policy, updating it to include a diversity and inclusive component to that. And that's across all procurements, whether it's professional services, goods, or construction. And one of the things I recognize that I'm probably most proud and honored by is having that opportunity as a practitioner and executioner, if you will, not in the, right. Not in terms of I got the sword and, our heads are on the chopping block, but one who is charged with executing and implementing that policy to actually draft it, because we are the ones who have to enforce it, and we don't always have that opportunity. So we've been able to get that done. And while we are updating our procurement policy, we're also updating our bid specifications. So our bid specification is going to have a much more inclusive look on it for when vendors start to look to do work with us. So so
unpack inclusive. What does that look like when a vendor comes to bid?
Right. So I have what's called a subcontractor utilization form for one. That's required at the time of bid or proposal submittal. And it requires the proposer to identify their diverse vendors at the time of submission. One of the things that we do not accept is the wonderful to be determined. Like, we'll tell you who we're going to use if we get the contract. No, that's not acceptable, right?
Okay, so they don't have an opportunity. If they say to be determined, they can't even be considered. They have to come with that form.
Right, they're considered non-responsive, non-responsible.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we understand that there may be some special circumstances. We are a wastewater treatment utility, so we recognize that in the space that we're in, we may not find diverse firms, but we want to make sure that they're at least doing their outreach. And one of the documents that I've added to our bid and proposal checklist is that the proposer must identify part of their day-to-day operations, like their standard modus operandi, for good faith efforts. So I don't want to know what you're going to do at time that you're made aware of the project. To say, oh, we'll call some diverse vendors, or to say, oh, give me a list and we'll contact those on your list. I want to see what are you doing every day before you even came to the Gary Sanitary District to even propose? What type of outreach events have you participated in? What has been that result? Do you have a database of existing minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses already? So those are some of the things that we asked them to identify to see if this is, just a part of the way they do business, or are they just doing this to appease us and they'll get the contract and do a bait and switch. So those are some of the things that we are looking for from a proactive standpoint. And in defining inclusion, what that looks like for us, inclusion for us means that you have identified local, meaning Gary companies, minorities, women, veterans, and we'll accept disadvantaged businesses also, not in substitution of, because our goals are very specific, but we will accept that in terms of your standard way of doing business, and you get like credit, if you will, because you have recognized a DBE in that. So that's what inclusion looks like to us. And inclusion also represents what you've done on previous projects. That is something that we have not asked for in the past. That is something that we are adding from a compliance standpoint and diversity standpoint at time of bid to see where they are.
Wow, that's a lot, Tammy, that you shared with me, and that's good for us to know, kind of moving forward, that you're really putting the clamps down on contracts in Gary, Indiana. I kind of want to go backward a little bit and let the audience know, like, about Gary. You know, what's the population? What's the mix as far as white, black, and different minorities in that space? And what are your contracting goals, if you have them, or is it by contract with goal setting?
Sure. So Gary, Indiana is now a Class 2 city. Several years ago, we were a Class 1, which meant that we had a population of over 100,000 residents. As of our last census, we were around 77,000 residents. It is anticipated, and not exactly in the most positive way, that as a result of this year's census, that our numbers will dramatically decrease from that 77,000. So we are losing population, unfortunately, at an alarming rate. And in terms of demographics, I can say that majority of our residents are African American, and I won't say senior citizens, but definitely like baby boomers. So majority of our population is over the age of 60, 65. And so with that in mind, our current ordinances and policies require that on our construction projects that we have a minimum of 66 2/3% Gary residents per trade working on all of our construction projects. And this is regardless of dollar amount. So if there's a project that's $10,000 per our ordinance and policies, they want 2/3 carpenters, 2/3 laborers, 2/3 electricians, operators, plumbers, et cetera. And that's a challenge, because when that particular ordinance was passed and adopted by our council back in 1998 and by the Gary Sanitary District in 1999, it was a challenge then because that didn't represent the number of Gary residents that had currently existed in the trades at that time. So while it sounded good for a city that was had way more than 100,000 residents, right? And then like 80% of our population was African American, the assumption was made that if we're 80% African American, then 66 2/3 should be reasonable. And rather than saying African American residents must work, it was a race and gender neutral approach, right? And so from a procurement standpoint, our budget should reflect purchasing with 66 2/3% of Gary businesses as well. So with our new administration focusing on more race and gender specific type of procurement focus, they have set the aspirational goal, whereas 40% of our procurements should be with minority-owned businesses. I believe it's 20% with women-owned businesses and 5% with veteran-owned businesses. And these are aspirational goals right now because we have not initiated a disparity study. So we have to word it as an aspirational goal. So as I'm crafting our procurement policy, keeping those aspirational goals in mind, however, holding our proposers' feet to the fire with those documents of identifying who you're going to be using upfront and making a diverse and inclusive response, part of what we're looking for in determining responsive and responsible.
Now, I guess with that said, you're looking at the procurements ahead of time and kind of unbundling and knowing where the potential utilization is on those contracts, I'm assuming. And then you're having the bidders kind of come forward with that, with their package.
And this is why I say compliance is the end result. It starts at the beginning. So when a project starts, and when I say starts, I'm talking about when we identify there's a problem and there's a need to go out for bid and fix it. Mm-hmm. So that's when I like to get involved. That's where we need to be involved. Right at the design phase, right at the time that the board even approves a project. Quite oftentimes I sit with our design engineers. I want to understand the scope so that before we even go out for bid, I have an idea of who's already out there in the universe to do the project. So I know before it even goes out to bid, if it's realistic that we'll be able to meet compliance. And so by the time we have a pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting, I can address some of those needed trades or needed suppliers that we would need for that particular procurement and generally speak to that. Like I would say, look, I know that we only have one Black general contractor here in Gary, Indiana. I know that. So I may not be expecting them to come with a list of 5 different Gary minority contractors. But what I will say is I need for you to do your due diligence. I need for you to, if they're not in Gary, I need for you to identify a minority woman or veteran-owned business in a surrounding area. And then at the time,
I was going to ask you, are you okay to pull from Chicago? It's sitting right there, the next city over.
Right. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So do you count that, or do you keep that separate because it's not Gary? Or you include that in your minority women count?
It will count in our minority and women veteran-owned business. Per the executive order, we've kind of set our procurement tier levels, if you will. So when companies are looking to go out for bid, we recognize, we have estimated 77,000. I'm pretty confident that it's less than that. And just driving around and being out in the community, I think it's less than that.
Right.
So population doesn't equate to the number of businesses that you have.
Right.
And so we are challenged in that area, right, of having diverse firms. So I encourage companies to reach out to the surrounding areas. Now, the state of Indiana offers a reciprocal certification for businesses that are certified by surrounding states. So in even my outreach, I've talked to businesses in Michigan, Wisconsin, Chicago, and particularly for minority businesses, and inform them of the opportunities that further exist should they apply for that reciprocal application with the state. So it counts towards our goal, but we don't want businesses to make that their first point of contact. So we almost use like the old hood Section 3 model of where you reach out to where the project is first. So for us, priority level 1 are Gary minority women veteran-owned businesses. The second level that we want them to reach out to are those that's within our county. The third is within the region. The fourth is within the whole state of Indiana. And then the fifth priority level would be those surrounding states like, or cities like Chicago, Detroit, you know, those types. But they have to, they being the proposers, they have to identify that up hand. And in our subcontractor utilization form, they have to identify where that company resides, like the address of that company, and if they are certified in another state.
Yeah, thanks for unpacking that, because that's important. You know, as we grow as a city, you know, more contracting opportunities are coming. I do want to ask you kind of one final question. Well, a couple questions. We're kind of winding down. One, do you have any capacity building opportunities to grow the network and pipeline for Gary businesses and so forth, and specifically contracting?
Okay, so in regards to capacity building, we don't have a formal program or process at this time. There's been lots of discussion about that, like having a city-led capacity building initiative. And that is somewhat embedded within our mayor's new executive order under what's called our MOVE program, MOVE, which stands for Making Opportunities Viable and Equitable. And so some of that capacity building would fall under that. But in the meantime, we have a tendency to either create webinars such as this that are informative and educational. We work a lot with our SBA office here in Indiana to host trainings with a lot of other different partners. I've done things with the Department of Labor. We've had full-blown conferences with like FAA, Federal Highway Administration, to provide additional information to our businesses, but recognizing that we can't do it all because I'm very, very small staffed. We work with some of our universities that have capacity building, not directly the name, but as a result of what they do, they allow for that type of growth and development for our vendors. So for example, Indiana University Northwest here in Gary, Indiana, they have a small business incubator that takes them through proper licensing, you know, the legal concerns, marketing. So oftentimes I refer businesses to the other resources to help build our stakeholders, because we want to be supportive of them and not take away from what they're able to do and what we just don't have the capacity to do. So again, going back to engagement, that's why it's important for us to be out in the community, building these relationships, making ourselves known. So to the degree that we can't self-perform something in-house, that we can grow, develop, identify, and retain our minority businesses by supporting other programs that exist for that sole purpose. And that's why the engagement part is so important. We cannot do it all. We can't do it all.
Okay, we're kind of wrapping up. Any last minute things that you want to share with our city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County region listeners that we have here in Pittsburgh?
You know, I think it's great that you're doing this. So congratulations, kudos for this initiative. Keep it up, because I think that coming out of this COVID, the way to communicate to our business community in a digital format, it's just going to grow because it's already was challenging trying to get some of our minority businesses to show up at a pre-bid meeting or a pre-proposal meeting because they couldn't get away from the office. But being able to communicate and reach our businesses in a way that gets directly to them and it doesn't take them a lot away from their business, it's going to be critical to their capacity building and our pipeline building, right? That we're able to stay connected. And so I would say, keep this up. It's a great opportunity. We've used the Zoom platform to provide educational and informative webinars. And we don't have it all right in Gary, Indiana. We don't. We're trying to get there. We have a lot of ideas, but I think the start of looking at our policies and seeing how they reflect what the industry calls for, because sometimes they don't always match. We create policies and legislation, but the industry is saying, that's not how we work. That's not how we operate. So when we're able to get the policymakers, the industry leaders, and the practitioners, Ricardo, like you and I, the practitioners that work with industry and implement the policies, that's when you have greater success. That's when you have greater success. So I would say keep up the good work, and no matter where I am, you can always count on me as a friend, Rick, and definitely as a resource to Philly.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Let me say Pittsburgh. I'm thinking about Philly cheesesteak for lunch. So.
Oh no, we got Permane sandwiches here. You got to taste it when you have an opportunity.
Okay. When it's
Thanks
safe
again,
to fly.
Tammi, for being a mentor to me through this process. When I started this work in 2015, there's just so much to learn in this space, and it's continually evolving. And this is kind of the opportunity for us at Inclusion Counts to kind of bring in subject matter experts like yourself that have been doing this for 20 years. We as a city had just really started to clamp down on our work and really focus in on inclusion in our contracting process. And thank you for extending yourself to us. We get better as you get better.
Oh, so I like that. Can I take it?
And again, thanks. You can take it. And again, thanks again for your help and being part of this inaugural episode of Inclusion Counts. So
I love it. Keep up
again, and I appreciate you, and take care.
Bye-bye.